Y'all know what I want right now more than anything in the world? I want Stephen A. Smith, the host and executive producer of First Take, to have a seat, sir.
Turn that volume up. You know you want it. It's time for Women's Basketball TV. With former NCAA champion, WNBA champion, business mogul, and national TV personality, Fran Harris.
A'ja Wilson is a generational talent. We have no one like her in the WNBA.
Bringing you entertaining, on-point analysis.
Did LSU just win the national championship?
Tea and inside scoop on the sport you love.
NIL is going crazy. All I'm saying is if they're making $5 million as a student athlete, can't they pay for their own college? I mean, I'm just asking. It's just a question.
Let's get it.
All right, so by now, y'all have seen the scuttlebutt online about Stephen A. Smith and his interaction with Monica McNutt, analyst, studio host for ESPN. And if you have not seen that, let me give you just the quick roundup of what is going on. Stephen A. Smith on his panel show with Shannon Sharp, the host whose name I cannot think of right now, sorry, and Monica McNutt, who was joining as a guest panelist. Stephen A. Smith was pontificating, as he is known to do, about his support of women's basketball, Caitlin Clark, how it's grown, all this stuff, and pretty much bragging on himself about being this huge proponent of women's sports. And that his show has by far and away been supportive of women's sports and had more sections and more segments and more whatever you want to call them about women's sports than any other sports program on planet Earth. Well, Monica McNutt, who was a baller at Georgetown and who is, one of our favorites on television, took him to task and said, listen, love you, you're my guy, but 3 years ago, you were not covering women's basketball. You were not doing this big thing you're talking about with women's sports. You've done it lately, but 3 years ago, you were not doing this heavy coverage of women's basketball / women's sports. Stephen A. Smith was flabbergasted by that. He was butthurt behind that. Wow, he said. Wow. Monica's like, hey, you're my guy. She stuck to her guns. You're my guy. But, yeah, you haven't been covering women's basketball like this. Like, you're my guy. She kept saying that. I wish she wouldn't have kept saying that, but I get it. You're my guy. You're my guy. Like, trying to make him feel better. You don't need to make him feel better. Facts are facts. Facts are facts. Stephen A. Smith and First Take, they have not covered women's sports in 3 years, right? In those early years, they were dipping their toe in the women's sports just like everybody else. And here's the thing, y'all. Let's keep it a buck for a second. Stephen A. Smith's advertisers are not people who are not brands that want to get in front of women. At least not 3 years ago. Stephen A. Smith's advertising partners are interested in the male demo, the 18 to 34, the 25 to 54 maybe male viewer. So the fact that Stephen A. Smith was not covering women's basketball or women's sports for that matter 3 years ago on a real rotation is absolutely believable and factual. But the reason may not have been that he didn't care. Inside, he might have cared, but the reflection of his care inside was not manifested on his show because he had an audience to deliver. That's the piece that I'm seeing that nobody's talking about. He had an audience to deliver. His audience is not interested in the woman demo, 18 to 34, woman 25 to 54. These are very desirable demographics for some brands, but not the brands who are looking to go to ESPN First Take for the male demographic. Y'all feel me on that? So that's the piece people are leaving out. All the other conversations and arguments are great, but you're leaving out the fact that if Stephen A. Smith was not covering it, it's because that's not his audience.
It's your girl, Fran Harris, former WNBA champion with the Houston Comets. It is finally here. Yes, the first novel set in the world of the WNBA. And it's got all the good stuff. It's got love, romance, true crime, forgiveness, redemption, all the stuff you love to see in great novels. If you love Terry McMillan and Waiting to Exhale, if you love Eric Jerome Dickey and all his madness, then you will love Houston by Morning. It's a story of 4 characters, a baller, an agent, a television personality, and a coach. And the way their lives collide into one another is a beautiful mess. Pick up a copy now on Amazon Kindle or at HoustonByMorning.com. Peace!
It's not his audience. So why would he be covering it? Sometimes we make arguments that don't make sense. We get mad about things that don't make sense. And it would not have made sense for First Take 3 years ago, even now for that matter, to be covering women's sports at the same level that they were talking about male sports. It would not have made business sense. Right? Just like we're not going to turn into The View, which is a panel of women, and hear them talk about the NFL every single day. The NBA, they're not going to dedicate half their show to shows and topics and segments that don't feed and fuel their target demographic of women ages 25 to 54, 35 to 65, whatever it is. It ain't men ages 18 to 34. So we got to argue about the right stuff. And what I'm arguing about and taking Stephen A. Smith to task about today is the fact that he was so butthurt that Monica called him out. Let's break that down. Let's break down the fact that Stephen A. Smith wasn't just mad because he was taken to task on his show. Let's keep it a buck, because we know that's part of why he was mad. Because he's getting taken to task on his show, on their air, on the ESPN air. A woman, no less. Stephen A. Smith. Now, I'm saying this, Stephen A. Smith, I haven't seen him say this, but we know how chauvinism works. We know how sexism works. It's the same thing. I'm gonna digress real quick. It's the same reason Angel Reese got a technical, got thrown out of the game. Because that male official was not gonna let this, and I'm doing air quotes, not gonna let this girl show him up on national TV. That's why Angel Reese got that second tech. But let me get back to Stephen A. and Monica McNutt. So part of Stephen A.'s butthurtness right now is that Monica McNutt stood her ground and said, yo, bro, 3 years ago, you were not talking about women's hoops. And what's really got him butthurt is that she was telling the truth. And he knows it. The guy who takes everybody to task. I would say got taken because that's grammatically correct, but in my neighborhood where I grew up, we would say got took. Stephen A. Smith got took to task. He got took to task. Yes, he did. And he's mad about it. Monica McNutt was correct. Not only was she correct, not only was she right to take him to task, as a journalist, she was right to do so. But also she was accurate in her taking of him to task. Because if you do any research on First Take, it is predominantly a male sports show. So the fact that Stephen A., in all of his infinite wisdom, sitting on his sports talk throne, thinks that he can bamboozle us as an audience by screaming and yelling at Monica, that he cannot believe that she, of all people, would not acknowledge his dominance on the sports talk airwaves, is hilarious to me. It's hilarious when I saw it, and it is hilarious as I record this video. Be mad about the right thing. Be mad that you know for sure you got the data to prove that what this person is saying about you is not true. Be mad about that if you got the data to prove it, but you don't have the data to prove it. You know why you don't? Because it didn't happen. It didn't happen. If women's sports were talked about on First Take 3 years ago, it was Serena winning. It may have been the WNBA championship. And then let's move on. Because let's face it, y'all don't want to talk about our glory. Y'all don't want to celebrate us. Y'all don't want to even acknowledge half the time that we exist in the world of sports. But you think 3 years ago, pre-Caitlin Clark, pre-Angel Reese, that you were talking about the WNBA and women's basketball on your show. Stephen A., have a seat, sir. And acknowledge, or get your interns or your production assistants to go back and look at all the shows you did from 1921 to 2020, from 2021 to 2024, and bring me back some data, brother. Bring me some data and I will eat every word I'm speaking right now. But you know why you're not going to do that? Because it didn't happen. That's why. Because it didn't happen. And it's okay. Your show is for guys. But don't try to save face by making it seem as though Monica McNutt was out of line or even lying or even incorrect or even remotely off beat by sharing what she shared. She was absolutely, and in your words, unequivocally, you love that one, on point. On point with her assessment of your coverage of women's basketball and women's sports 3 years ago. But hey, that's my take. What y'all think? I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to Women's Basketball TV with Fran Harris, the most provocative and entertaining women's basketball show on earth. Be sure to click that like, share, and notification button so you don't miss a moment. We'll see you tomorrow.